Was the warning given by former Officer Potter, I'll tase you, reasonable?
Yes, sir. That's the standard warning. You just communicate in plain English.
It's a standard. That is what they're taught to do.
Yes, sir. I'll taser you. You just tell the person, and in many cases, someone submits. They'll raise their hands and say, I quit, and that's the goal.
Was the warning taser reasonable under the circumstances in this case?
That is specifically taught in the lesson plan. Number of reasons for that. It's really not for the suspect. It's more for the officers and others around the event to understand that a taser is just about to be deployed.
What would have happened had the taser, an actual taser, hit Mr. Wright vis-a-vis his ability to drive that car?
The actual taser device, when it performs as designed and intended, is the most effective incapacitation tool I've ever experienced, independent of a central nervous system disruption. And I apologize for being graphic, a gunshot to the head, something that basically turns off the lights. The taser is the second best thing out there when it performs as designed and intended. In actual operation, it's a relatively fragile system. Things can happen. Clothing can be lofty. A probe maybe won't stick. The very best studies out there, the most recent, January 2021 with LAPD, is all excuses aside, the taser actually accomplishes overcoming resistance about 67% of the time.
In light of your review and the review of all the testimony that you've seen, was Officer Potter's perceived use of a taser consistent with contemporary and professional police training and practice?
Yes, sir.
And why?
The basic model policy definition of when the device would be used is completely relevant here. Grounds to arrest or detain, and a reasonable belief that physical force and resistance would follow. That was happening right before your eyes. And secondarily, when the physical control effort began and the dynamic nature of how he's trying to get away clearly needs to be stopped, just getting in the vehicle is significant, but officers would be aware of that weapons component and the concern, could there be a gun in the car? Could there be a gun on him? This isn't just about might this person drive away. So the need to stop it as quickly as possible is the key aspect. Nothing but the taser in that scenario had a likelihood of doing that without a risk of serious injury or death. The continued grapple, if you don't get that done and that car gets in drive, it's going to get bad. And the taser is that unique device that when performing as designed and intended would have put a stop to it, very, very likely in most cases.
What you didn't see in your initial review of the case was Johnson's testimony, is that correct?
That's correct, sir. I saw that last week, I believe.
And he was the fellow who was reaching in to stop the car from getting into gear.
On the passenger side, yes, sir.
Was he at risk of great bodily harm or death if he had not gotten out of that car as quickly as he did?
Had the vehicle been put into drive, beyond question.
If, let me assume a hypothetical, if we have the facts as we have them here, and the officer sees Johnson in the car,
Yes,
sees him struggling in the car and has a view of him. And further, that the individual is about to drive away, or at least attempt to drive away, with an officer who's in and out of the car. Would that officer who sees him be reasonable in the use of deadly force in the face of Mr. Johnson's apparent risk of great bodily harm or death?
Object, Your Honor, as calling for speculation, then Brother Stevens.
The objection is overruled. You may answer.
The question, sir, would be answered first by just understanding the basic decision-making process involving deadly force, and that is, can I reasonably articulate a belief that myself or another is in immediate danger of risk of death or great bodily harm? So if that's the standard, as an officer assessing the appropriateness of deadly force, an officer half in and half out of a vehicle that is about to be put into drive with the door open would certainly meet that standard of being in immediate danger of death or serious physical injury.
So an officer seeing that could shoot.
It would meet that standard, and an officer could shoot, yes, sir.